All right, everybody, it's a Friday coffee and C's edition here on Green with Envy. The Celtics, shorthanded, have won back-to-back home games this week. We'll talk about the night that was for Peyton Pritchard and Derek White, talk about Jason Tatum and the boys putting it on the Sixers on Thursday night, as well as Celtics-Lakers this weekend. It's going to be a big one. This is a big show. This is live on YouTube. This is live on Twitter. This is Green with Envy, and you guys know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy, a Friday coffee and Celtics edition, which, as you know by now, is sponsored by Wood Island Media. Wood Island Media, a powerhouse production company for the past decade, specializing in celebrity, branded, and social content, based in Los Angeles, but roots in Boston. As always, is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me on this Friday morning, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Menakis. Greg, we had a men's league game last night. Body's been breaking down. Give us a quick update. How we feeling?
I feel okay. The back held up last night. Yeah, back held up last night. I woke up this morning. I iced it when I got home, which is good. Did some stretching. But I'm feeling pretty good, man.
You know, your back's been feeling pretty bad for a while. Were you not icing it?
I've always heard that you're not supposed to ice a back, but maybe that was just some like misinformation that I've just had in my brain.
Well, it's like ice. It's like ice and heat, right? Is like there's supposed to be some. I know heat for your back. It's I think something I've heard as well too. But I don't know. I've never had like that bad of a back to have to, I guess, dig in and do the full research.
Yeah, I honestly haven't really done too much research into like how to care for it after you exercise. But yeah, man, I mean, it held up, you know, was able to do my thing on the court a little bit, hit some clutch free throws, felt good. I was thinking about retiring before the game. Honestly, I was thinking about that it was going to be my last game. And then after we won the game, I played okay. I was like, all right, I can do another week of this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, whether it's the NBA or Austin, Texas men's league, winning solves a lot of things. So getting back in the win column just makes you feel better about the decisions when you try to play through something. And yeah, I was a little surprised you were driving to the hole a lot more last night than you typically do. And I was like, interesting move from my guy here with the bad back, getting in the lane a little bit more, but definitely hit some clutch free throws last night.
You know what you did, Will? I think you may have set a career high in rebounds last night.
Hey man, what was it? Either the week before, I got off to a hot start, and then it really faded out pretty quickly.
I counted 5 last night.
Yeah, I was trying to get. I mean, listen, man, we need some more rebounding. We only got really one true big guy on our team right now, so gotta get in the mix. Gotta try to get in there. Even though my body is always just like, okay, you can do this, but it's like a step behind. It's just getting the body to move at the same time as the mental. So yeah, concerted effort to try to get in there in the mix a little bit more. So we'll see. Big rebound tonight though. I'll take that all day, every day. It doesn't happen very often. Also not a huge team minus one guy last night.
Dude, you had 5 rebounds. Normally you just shoot 3-pointers. You had a shot fake rip through baseline mid-range jumper where you actually like you probably could have jumped over a book for the first time in I don't know how long. But me and I think it was me and Liptak on the bench. Like, did Will just jump?
Hey man, it had to get a little bit up. Honestly, that was inspired by Sam Hauser, man. I don't know if before he got hurt in the game on Wednesday, he had a nice little move where he kind of like pump fake, got to the middle of the lane, and it looked really nice. And I think I've seen Sam Hauser do that a couple times. He doesn't do it very often, but when he does, I think it actually looks pretty good when he uses the pump fake to then get in the lane and get a little mid-range jumper off. So I was inspired watching Sam earlier this week. So appreciate the love. Appreciate that.
I do want to throw something out there before we get started here. Yeah. It's allergy season. There is a solid chance at some point in this podcast I get hit with a sneeze attack. And I just want it's going to be great content because everyone's going to get to see how many times I actually sneeze. And the age-old question, will the sneezing lead to an inevitable bloody nose, which happens to me like once a week in allergy season. So this could be a really interesting pod for everybody.
All right. Well, we got to stay on our toes here. Do you have the tissues ready just in case?
I don't.
All right. Well, that's probably that's already one mistake that we got here going up against us. So stay tuned. We'll have to see what happens there. But as you guys know, and real quick, I wanted to just shout out everybody that's joining us here on YouTube, that's joining us on Twitter. And also one of the things I was going to start throwing out there is, hey guys, if you have anything that you want to see on the podcast, also, we always talk about following us on our socials, which you should be doing. Follow us on YouTube. But hit us up in our email too, celticsnoise@gmail.com. I feel like a lot of podcasts to listen to, they throw out the email. We don't do that quite enough here. So if you guys have something you want to send our way, you have any recommendations, you have any suggestions, whatever it might be, we got an open inbox, celticsnoise@gmail.com. Come hit us up. But today, it's a Friday coffee and C's. So you guys know the deal. It's time to pass the rock.
You guys ready? What's the plan, Bobby? We're winging it, Jerry.
Yeah! I got the rock now! I got this motherfucker now! What?
All right, Greg. I'm actually gonna be a little selfish here, and I'm gonna start with the rock today. I'm gonna take the rock here because I have a direction that I want us to go into. So we just talked about how we had a men's league game last night. Celtics game versus Sixers. Hospital teams, Jason Tatum did what a superstar is supposed to do in that situation. An easy 35 where you're sitting in the fourth. That's kind of the story of that game. I don't know if there's gonna be too much for us to break down there. So I want to start looking ahead. I want to look ahead to this weekend when the Los Angeles Lakers come to town, and the best rivalry in sports, in my opinion, is renewed. And Greg, I know the Lakers have been on a hot streak. I caught the end of the game last night with them and the Knicks. They won in overtime. Hopefully the injury Jalen Brunson got is not serious. That would be a major bummer just from a competitive standpoint. But the Lakers are on fire. They are 17-3 in their last 20 games. They're on an 8-game winning streak, second only to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are still on, I believe, a 12-game winning streak as of this recording. Over the last 15 games, the Lakers are number 9 in offensive rating, number 1 in defensive rating, number 4 in net rating. LeBron, since February 1st, this does not include last night, though, he is 28.7 points a game, 9.8 rebounds, 7 assists, 1.2 steals, just under a block per game. He's shooting 54.2% from the field. He's shooting 43.2% from 3 on just under 7.5 attempts a game. He's getting to the line just under 6 times at 78%. At 40 years old, Greg, I didn't see us getting here, especially when the Luka trade happened. The first thing I said was, great move for the Lakers, probably a minor step back for this year. Hand up. You got to take accountability. I was off on that one. Are we looking at a potential finals preview this weekend at the TD Garden?
Are we looking at a potential finals preview between the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers? Yes, I think we are, man. I'm really impressed with the Lakers. I think we were talking about it last week. Like this is with Brian Barrett. This is the team that I'm most interested in the rest of the season, and it feels so icky because every time the Lakers are on TV, I'm like, I want to watch this game. I want to watch the Lakers. I'm like, obviously not a Lakers fan, but as a fan of basketball, it's just so interesting watching this team come together. And the matchup this weekend against the Celtics, where I'm hoping the Celtics play everybody. I'm hoping they look at it as, a potential finals matchup with the Lakers, and they want to test themselves against this team and really just, put a little damper on the Lakers' spirits right now, because the Lakers are riding high. Luka's riding high. That game against the Knicks last night was must-see TV, man. It was appointment television. When I got home, I was like, do I watch the rerun of the Celtics and Sixers, or do I just watch the highlights of that and then watch the Lakers? And I was like, I think I'm just going to watch the Lakers and Knicks, because I wanted to see how the Knicks played against the Lakers. Obviously, you mentioned Brunson got hurt. I wanted to see how the Lakers would deal with size and who would guard Towns. And you know who was guarding Towns?
LeBron had him at stretches. I only caught the end of the game. So LeBron. Yeah, it was LeBron. Yeah.
LeBron was playing the 5. He's just guarding Towns. And they had Jackson Hayes out there for a little bit, who actually made an impact.
Dude,
Gabe Vincent.
Jackson Hayes doing well. This is the part that I'm still having trouble getting my head around, is that, the very beginning of that 17-3 I mentioned did have Anthony Davis. Since then, or since that trade, so it's been more than half of those games, Jackson Hayes is the starting center. Jackson Hayes is the starting center. And really, that was part of my, trade assessment of, hey, this is going to be good for the long run, but you've got Reeves, Luka, and LeBron closing, and now you don't have a guy like AD on the back line, there to kind of clean stuff up. Like, this is going to be tough. And Jackson Hayes has played well, and LeBron has turned back the clock, to your point. Like, LeBron defensively he's playing old school LeBron defense, and now he's just like, give me the bigs. Like, and that's the most fascinating thing for me. And I absolutely need them to play the Nuggets in the second round, because I need LeBron guarding Jokic for a 7-game series, because I need to see what happens. I don't know that that's going to work out for the Lakers. I think that's I think Jokic is my biggest question for the Lakers when we look at them in the Western Conference playoffs, but I need to see LeBron versus Jokic for 7 games.
That'd be a lot of fun. But this weekend, man, what are your biggest what are the things you're most interested in seeing in the matchup this weekend? Celtics Lakers Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get back to the, obviously, let's say the Celtics are going to be healthy. So we have Al Horford, we have Kristaps Porzingis. I want to see how the Celtics attack the interior of the Lakers, because once again, I'm still kind of stupefied that they're doing this with Jackson Hayes being their only primary true center that they're playing. Otherwise, they have small lineups that LeBron or Jared Vanderbilt, at times Dorian Finney-Smith, like are masquerading as a center. So when you have Kristaps Porzingis, when you have 3 bigs, and we've been playing a lot of double big, like, does the double big hold up against some of these small ball lineups? That's a point of intrigue. If KP is in there, can you put KP in positions in the post, in the mid post, that are so damaging to this Lakers defense that it starts to break it? If you're Jason Tatum, I still always think Jason Tatum, I always want him to be driving a little bit more, because his field goal percentage at the rim is among the top. The attempts is a little bit lower than I think I always ideally want it to be. Does Tatum just relentlessly go downhill because they're theoretically,
like last night against the Sixers, where Tatum just got wherever he wanted?
Right, exactly. Like, and obviously, I think a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith might be getting that assignment, or there might be Jared Vanderbilt. Like, there'll be some more decent defense on the perimeter. But then again, there's also going to be Austin Reeves out there. Luka's going to be out there. We've seen what we do when we attack Luka. So I want to see how aggressively the Celtics game plan is to attack that interior, especially because our game plan revolves around the 3-point line. But as we always say, it's the process of those 3-point shots. I don't care how many threes the Celtics take. It's the process of how they get them. And when they're at their best, honestly, the first 5 to 6 out of 8 shots are going to be at the rim. And then that opens up the 3-point line, is typically when I see the Celtics at their best. So I think this is an interesting matchup where that's what they should be doing. Do they get suckered into doing it too much? Do they then maybe default to getting easy looks on the outside and not driving enough? I don't know. It's going to be such an interesting chess match, but that's where my mind goes to, is how do the bigs and how does the interior play? How does that all mash together in this matchup? How about you?
Well, I think the Lakers' game plan is, against the Knicks anyway, it was to just like throw bodies at Brunson, dare other people to shoot, lock down. If Towns is on the perimeter, we're going to close out hard on Towns, make him deck the ball. But we're okay with Josh Hart shooting threes. That big 3 that Josh Hart hit, and I think it was the overtime of the 4th quarter, where he pointed at the Lakers bench and then like pointed right at JJ Redick, because he knew the game plan. It was like, leave Josh Hart open, leave OG.
They were teammates in New Orleans. Yeah,
exactly. They were teammates in New Orleans. And I think with the Celtics, it's going to be interesting to see if they keep the same game plan, as like, we're going to close out hard on the people that we see as real threats and the guys that we want to shoot the 3. Like, maybe this is a dare Jaylen Brown to shoot 3-pointers game. Like, maybe this is a dare Al Horford to shoot 3-pointers game, and they see who have they targeted as guys that they can help off of, because I think that's going to be one of the biggest things with this game. The Celtics have the 3-point shooting to bend the Lakers defense and really make them scramble. The great thing about the Lakers defense right now is that they're staying home and they're not over committing on the perimeter. Like, they were just pretty much in a zone, like they're in a matchup zone. They're playing man, but they're basically in a matchup zone with all like the shell drill principles. And I thought they did a really good job. Like, Gabe Vincent, He was pressuring the ball. He was pressuring Jalen Brunson, LeBron
big
playing
shots
on the
too.
back line. Yeah, hit some big shots. Austin Reeves is competing. Luka's competing on the defensive end. Like, this is the most locked in I think I've ever seen Luka Doncic on defense. He had a big steal in overtime. He, knocked the ball away from Brunson a few times. They're playing really well, and this is going to be a great test for the Celtics. I don't know if you want to do the schedule thing right now, but this is one of the last times the Celtics have a real test this season, and I think they need to go all out. I don't think we'll see Drew Holiday just because of that infamous mallet finger, but it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited for this game. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big UFC fan, and it's Alex Pereira, who's my favorite UFC fighter this weekend. So it's Celtics Lakers right into the UFC. It's like a great sports weekend for me.
Big weekend, big time weekend. And yeah, to your point on the schedule. So this is something I think all fans need to kind of prep themselves for. And I mentioned this to you last night when we were in person. This is one of the last games that the Celtics it's really going to matter or have any chance of being kind of a playoff tune-up. So there's 19 games left here, Greg. We got the Lakers on Saturday, Utah on Monday, followed by OKC on Wednesday. So the two biggest Western Conference threats, aside from the Nuggets we just played last week, are going to be at the TD Garden here in a span of about 5 days. After that, here is the remaining what would then be 16 games for the Celtics. Tell me to stop when you think this is a game the Celtics are going to take seriously or they will have any inkling to feel like it should matter. After OKC, it's away at Miami, away at Brooklyn, home for Brooklyn, away at Utah, away at Portland, away at Sacramento, away at Phoenix, away at San Antonio, no Wemby, away at Memphis. That's a maybe game for me.
Yeah. I think that's the game because Memphis came into Boston and put it on us.
That's the only one I have listed here. And then after that, we're now into April. It's home in Miami, home against Phoenix, home against Washington. Now, this is the last week of the season here. We've got away at New York, away at Orlando, home at Charlotte to close out the season. So even those Knicks and the Magic who are really struggling, like those games are so close to the end of the season that I'm just going to be like, hey, let's just get healthy. Maybe they play their guys, to get the last final warm up in because then they're going to have a full week off while the play-in tournament happens. But yeah, I think outside of Lakers Saturday, Thunder on Wednesday, which I think we should probably plan to do a post-game pod for that one. It's pretty bleak as far as playoff tune-ups that exist for the Celtics. So Celtics fans, if you want to find a game where you think that you're trying to, read into something that might matter in the long run, lock in on Saturday night, lock in on Wednesday night, because the rest of the games, I just don't think we're going to be able to take much away from them as far as strategy. What does this mean? They blew a lead. They didn't beat this team by enough. I don't think it's going to fucking matter for any of the rest of those games. So I think LA, Oklahoma City, Memphis at the end of March, those are kind of the last 3 games that are going to have any significance with how far back they are of the 1 seed. And, the Knicks are 3.5, 4 games back of the 2 seed. I don't see the Knicks making a substantial run and us falling enough that we're basically locked into the 2 seed.
Especially with Brunson's ankle. Who knows how long he's going to
be right. Exactly. Yeah. So even if that's a week or 2 week injury, which I hope it is, like that damages it even more. So yeah, it's a pretty comfy schedule for the Celtics here down the stretch. So Saturday and Wednesday, definitely some outsized importance for what it means here. Final 19 games of the season.
Yeah, and over those final 19 games of the season, I think this is where Peyton Pritchard really puts his stamp on the 6th Man of the Year award because he's going to have a lot of opportunities.
Hey,
Jalen Brown said.
Talk about Peyton Pritchard. Tell me about Peyton Pritchard, man, because I think he might have already stamped it this week.
Yeah, Jalen Brown said at the beginning of the season, right, there are some games where we just let Peyton Pritchard do his thing. We're going to run the offense through him. Maybe infamously said in Detroit, right? In Detroit, I think is going to take that very personally if we see them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They took it personally the last time we were there. And Peyton Pritchard obviously dropping a career high 43 points the other night. Follows it up with another 4 3-pointer game last night against the Sixers. Over those last 19 games, we're going to see a lot of Peyton Pritchard with the Rock. We'll probably see some more Baylor Shireman, who was great last night. But I actually have a little game with Peyton Pritchard that I want to play with you right now, Will.
Let's do it.
I'm going to list some names, and you tell me, would you rather have Peyton Pritchard or this player? And then there's going to be a little kind of hint, a little caveat at the end that I just want you to think about, and you'll get there. Okay.
That's one clarifying question.
Yeah.
Do contracts matter? I'll just ask that.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
Just play the game with me. All right. Would you rather have Peyton Pritchard or Kevin Huerter?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Grayson Allen?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Jordan Clarkson?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Isaiah Joe?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Cole Anthony?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Gabe Vincent?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Mike Conley?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or TJ McConnell?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Buddy Hield?
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard or Dante DiVincenzo?
I'm gonna go Pritchard. That's the closest one. I'm going Pritchard, but that's the closest one. I'll go Pritchard, but that one's close.
Okay, you brought up contracts. So what do all these players have in common?
They make more money than Peyton Pritchard.
All those players make more money than Peyton Pritchard. And Bill Simmons just did the worst contract draft with Joe House and Big Waz. And I was just thinking about best contracts in the NBA. Jalen Brunson probably has the best contract in the NBA because he's an MVP level guy and he's not on a max contract, which is
20
crazy.
million or something.
Yeah. Peyton Pritchard probably has the next best contract in the NBA.
What's his name? I don't know if it was Bontemps or if it was what's the other guy that's on the podcast with Windhorse? I think it was either way. I think it was Bontemps. Yeah, it wasn't McMahon. It was Bontemps. Did this similar type exercise maybe like a month or two ago, where he's like, how can I build the best contracts like without using like max players or I forget what the stipulations were. But Peyton Pritchard easily made that team. To your point, Jalen Brunson was the first pick of like who can I put on this team that's not a max level player and make it. And I think there was several Celtics and several Knicks that made those rosters. But yeah, Peyton Pritchard, absolute steal, $7 million for the next 3 years. Like, get out of here. Like, he's going to win 6th man of the year. It's insane. And Greg, honestly, that game against the Blazers was fully ready for that to be just a classic game where it's like, we probably should win this game, but we probably won't. And I had a lot of fun watching that game. That game was so much fun to watch. I want to hit you with a couple of stats that came out from that game that are still kind of mind-blowing, even a few days later. So if you were in a coma for some reason, Peyton Pritchard and Derek White combined for 84 points against the Blazers, 240 pieces for each of our guys, 43 for Peyton, 41 for Derek White. First Celtics duo to ever score over 40. Most combined threes in a single game, 10 for Pritchard, 9 for White. What's that total up to, Greg?
19
threes in that game for our guys. Pritchard, double-double with 10 rebounds off the bench, 43 points, 10 rebounds. And they now join Jason Tatum in the 200 made three-pointers on the season club. They're actually only the third trio to ever do it, and there's 19 games left in the season, which is pretty ridiculous. But they joined the 2016-17 Houston trio of James Harden, Eric Gordon, and Ryan Anderson. Legend Ryan Anderson.
Oh, dude, I wish you had made that a trivia question for me to try and guess the third guy.
I should have tried that. Well, there's one more here. It's a little bit easier, but Golden State 22-23. Can you guess those three?
Steph, Clay, and who would be the third one? I'm blanking.
It's Pool Party.
Oh, Poole was still, yeah. Jordan
That's
Poole.
right. It's Jordan Poole. And so the reason I didn't ask that is I do have a trivia question for you that's come from this night. And so Peyton Pritchard, 43 points off the bench. Actually only second in Celtics history. Larry Bird scored 47 points coming off the bench in a game in 1985. Question for you, Greg. Do you know who Peyton Pritchard passed for second place in points off the bench as a Boston Celtic? And I will give you a clue here. This player scored 41 points in a game in 1995 off the bench.
I think I saw you tweet about this. Todd Day.
It's Todd Day. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's dude. Honestly, I'm going to be very real. I can't tell you a single thing that I remember about Todd Day, other than if someone came up to me on the street and go, name 5 90s Celtics, he's on that list. That name is just on that list. I can't tell you anything about Todd Day's game, but I can tell you he is quintessential 90s Celtics name that just jumps to my mind.
String bean shooter, right? He was just like kind of a skinny shooter.
Yeah, I remember him being like lanky. That's like about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, you know, because we were 6 years old at the time, 1995, and just thinking about the players that have seeped their way into our brain, into our subconscious, that guys will always remember. And it just makes me think about like my nephews right now and like who are the guys that they're going to remember when they're 35 years old. Like, is it like, I'm trying to think on this team, like Jordan Walsh, maybe Jordan Walsh is going to be one of those guys.
I mean, Luke Cornett, I'm sure will be, one where, let's
they'll
see
talk about Luke
people...
Cornett like he was a Hall of Famer.
Right. Like, dude, are you kidding me? We had Luke Cornett as our 8th man, and there's going to be some guy, they're going to be at college, 15 years from now, whatever, and be like, dude, who? Luke Cornett?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And they're like, dude, you didn't know about Luke Cornett? You know about the Cornett contest?
Right. And it just made me that I'll take the rock back here. Like when you think about Celtic City, the documentary that they're putting out right now, episode 1 was great, by the way. And you see all these players that are on the court that like we just don't have any connection to. They played before we were born. Like we know all the stories. We've seen clips. We've seen highlights. Like even Larry Bird, like we didn't watch Larry Bird play basketball. I remember like being a little kid, and at the very end of Larry Bird, maybe it was like the last game he played or something. I remember my family watching Larry Bird and talking about Larry Bird. But then like the Rick Pitino infamous quote of like, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, people. Kevin McHale's not walking through that door, people. Robert Parrish not walking through that door, people. Like that wasn't too far removed from Larry Bird, like actually being on the Celtics. That was like a couple of years, right? So in my head, that Larry Bird had played like so far in the past, and it had only been a couple of years, right? But then when you see Celtic City, which I want to get your thoughts on, there's so many guys that I just want to go back and like watch all these games because I know the names, but I don't know the games by any means. Like, I don't know how anybody on the 80s Celtics played other than like the big 3. 70s Celtics. Like I've seen bits and pieces of Havlicek, 60 Celtics. I've seen the Bob Cousy highlights and the Russell highlights. I'm just so excited to be able to go back into the past through this documentary. And I trust the narrator here in this documentary to show me a really good representation of what basketball was for the Celtics before we were born.
First of all, that was a pretty good Pitino. I was impressed. I liked your Pitino impression.
Thanks.
Yes, Celtic City. Really liked episode 1. I've been more in the camp of like, I need to stop making documentaries, all these series. I'm pretty excited for this series. This I'm really into, and it's for what you talked about, that historical retrospective that we don't have because we were just of a certain age. And like honestly, like when you said 70 Celtics, that's easily my biggest gap is like 70 Celtics. I know Havlicek was there, but like other than that, I really cannot tell you much about the 70 Celtics. 80 Celtics is just like, there's been so many documentaries made and stuff, and I have gone back and watched a little bit. Not enough to like sit here and give you like some real good analysis outside of the big 3. Like I know DJ was a tremendous defender. Danny Ainge was kind of like that gritty guy. They had Bill Walton for that 1 year where he won 6th man of the year. But to your point, I do think it's really it's at least based off episode 1, it's done super well with a good mix of like, here's who the guys are that you need to know. Here's what they did. And then also mixing it in with some of the off-court commentary that was going on at the time as well. But even like at one point when they talk about Tommy Heinsohn, they were like, yeah, he was a shooter. I was like, I never really thought of Tommy Heinsohn as a shooter. Right. And also that error, like who's defined as a shooter is completely different than how we would look at that today. But yeah, I'm really excited to kind of walk through this. And I think to your point, there's one I know later on, I don't know what episode it's going to be, but they're going to get into like the Len Bias and Reggie Lewis of like what that would have meant for the Celtics. And Reggie Lewis is a guy I'm a little embarrassed that I don't know enough about, because he was probably going to be the guy that was going to be our favorite player, and then basically died right before we were able to really fully understand Celtics basketball. I just kind of knew like a guy died on like, playing for the Celtics.
And then there's the Reggie Lewis Center in Boston.
And we used to go to the Reggie Lewis Center. Yeah. For high school events, because it was right next to Latin school. But I don't really understand Reggie Lewis's game and just how good he could have been. And that's not been somebody that I have. And hand up on me for this. I haven't really gone back in the YouTube archives and been like, let me look at Reggie Lewis highlights, just because the 90s Celtics were so bad. It was like, yeah, he got like one playoff run with like the end of the big three, and they maybe made it to the first or second round. I can't remember exactly. Right. And then he, I think as soon as they retired, or if they were still on the team when he passed away, I can't remember even. And that's something that I'm really excited to kind of learn more about, that plus the 70s Celtics, and like just filling in that gap in history. Celtic City has me amped up, and that episode 1 was so well done. Love seeing Kuzi was being hilarious. Kuzi was cracking me up. He's just like, fuck it, I'm old, I don't care. He's like calling people.
Dude, how funny is it that
I remember this?
Yeah. When Bob Cousy, the year that he didn't play in the NBA, and he's just out there teaching women how to drive. Like, that's such a funny anecdote.
That's hilarious. Like, what a funny world. And then also at one point, didn't Red Auerbach, I think he punched the St. Louis Hawks owner in the face before a game. like what a just different world that we're living in, where the best college basketball player can just sit out for a year and teach driver's ed, and then an NBA head coach is slugging the owner before I think it was before a finals game. Like, just completely different world that we're living in the 60s here.
Yeah, I'm watching the documentary with Danielle because she likes watching documentaries. So that was her favorite thing.
I might try to get Lorena to watch this one. She was away for the first episode, but I might make her try to catch up on it, because I think this is really well done too. On top of it being just like Celtics content, I think it's really well done. Yeah.
So people out there, if you're trying to get your spouse or significant other involved in watching some sports content with you, this is probably a good way to do it. If they're interested in some history, there's some funny anecdotes, like we said, like the Bob Cousy thing, teaching driver's ed to women. They had just like women around the clock, apparently 24 hours. They were just teaching women how to drive. Like, Danielle thought that was the funniest thing in the world. So
the fact that it's an entire business model. Entire business. Just women need to learn how to drive. That's it. Oh, excuse me, sir. You want to learn how to drive? No. Can you read the sign? This is a women only class. I'm sorry. That's not the case here. I also enjoyed when Kuzi was like, never really thought of myself as like a sex symbol. And then it's like him in Hawaii with like his shirt open, his little taco meat hair just hanging out.
Right.
It was like
those guys are hot.
Yeah. Never thought of myself as hot before, but I guess. And then honestly, another great part of the documentary, just juxtaposing that with like Bill Russell and like Sat Sanders getting like pulled over in Louisiana in the offseason just for being black and driving around.
Dude, Sat Sanders has maybe the biggest hands I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, they were like alien hands. Those things are like 13 inches long.
Yeah, I also love it's also really great to hear Bill Russell's laugh again. His laugh is so amazing. It's unbelievable. And then anytime just we get Bill Russell content, I love. I didn't really realize that there was a kind of like almost like a Shaq Kobe type, like to a degree, like struggle with him and Kuzi.
Yeah,
like, I don't think I was fully aware of that. Like, especially like Kuzi's night, and Bill Russell's like, man, I play for the Celtics. I don't play for Boston. Like, I ain't fucking doing this shit. Like, you know what I mean? And where he's like, Red, you ain't getting none of these titles without me, right? Like, I didn't realize that it kind of had that little bit of and it sounds like, obviously it sounds like they were friends, but there's a certain animosity that was definitely sitting there that I think is interesting, that I didn't know quite as much about. So that's going to be, I think, every Monday is a new episode of Celtic City. I don't know how many there are, but at least I know I've heard Joe Mazzulla talk about episode 4, so I know at least we're getting 4, maybe 5, 6 episodes. So that's super exciting. You have anything else basketball related right now, Greg, for Pass the Rock?
No, man. Nothing.
Yeah, pretty light week for the Celtics here. With the Sixers game, like, shout out to Baylor Shireman. That was nice to see. Honestly,
first Tommy Award.
Yeah, and I'll say this, because one of the macro disappointments that I've had in this year is I don't know where the Celtics are going to start backfilling some young players into this rotation. And Baylor Shireman at least gave you something to be like, hey, there's something. Because Jordan Walsh on the other end of this for me, and I know he had a few hustle moments against the Blazers. And, last night I tried to go back through and watch some of the highlights, watch his shots, watch his rebounds. Like, Jordan Walsh has been,
can I ask you something?
Like I said, quick? This is macro disappointing, but yeah, go ahead.
Think back to like the Romeo Langfords, the Aaron Neesmiths. Where do you have Jordan Walsh right now, year 2, compared to those guys in terms of just like pure excitement or belief in them potentially being something for the Celtics?
Oh, it's lower. I mean, at least those guys, I feel like I had some, like, I think, like, I was thinking about this earlier. If you're going to sit here today and tell me, hey, I think next year Jordan Walsh can play a big role for this team, you might be right. But I think you are just an over the top optimist, and there's nothing that you could pull from this season to show me like, hey, here's where I think Jordan Walsh is going to make an impact. I just don't really notice Jordan Walsh, and the little times that I do, I'm always like left wanting more. Like it's
Game's
just been,
too
and
fast for
listen,
him.
yeah, and the thing is, like, he's supposed to be athletic. I never see him impose his
Well,
athleticism
okay, so
in any
there,
way.
I think that's a misconception. Jordan Walsh is not like a jump out of the gym athlete, right? Jordan
Mhm.
Walsh is spindly. He's got like great measurables. He's got quick feet, and he's got like a wing, like a 7'4" wingspan
Yeah,
or
he's got a
something
super
like
long
that. Like
wingspan.
his
Yeah, long
wingspan's
arms.
crazy, but he's not an explosive athlete. And I think that was a little bit of a misconception because of the Andre Iguodala comparisons and all
Mhm.
that. Like Andre Iguodala could jump out of the gym. He was like a
Right.
slam dunk contest guy. Jordan Walsh is never going to be that guy. So I think maybe your expectations were a little off there on what type of athlete he is. The thing for me is like when Jordan Walsh has moments, like last night in the game, gets the ball, I think like around the paint area, drives to his left hand, has this little like reverse pivot where he's got a fadeaway jumper from, I don't know, 10 feet, and he just doesn't take it. Like it was wide
Yeah,
open. He didn't see
that's
the
the toughest
shot,
part for me.
right? He shot fakes and he ends up like trying to play through contact. It's like you got to see your shots. Like if you don't see that you're wide open in that moment, like the game's too fast for you right now.
Mhm.
And I think over the last 19 games, this is going to be a great opportunity for the Celtics to put Jordan Walsh out there in real NBA minutes, put Baylor Shireman out there, and just see, is one of these guys going to be something in the future? Because in the playoffs, it's going to be Torrey Craig, who also had a decent
Yeah.
game last night. Like Torrey Craig is that guy that Jordan Walsh should look at as like, okay, maybe that's the type of player that I could be in the league, and
Mhm.
hopefully learn from a Torrey Craig over the last 19 games and in the playoffs this year. And then Baylor Shireman, like he was pegged as the Sam Hauser potential replacement, if Sam Hauser didn't sign the contract that he signed. And I think with Shireman, you just see he can read the game. Like the game's not too fast for Shireman. He can read the game. He has great IQ, former quarterback, like
Mhm.
all that
I was
stuff.
gonna say, I feel like being that QB where he set I think it was Nebraska, he set like all these like high school state records. Like feels like that definitely helps him analyze what's happening on the court.
Right. And when he came into the league, it was like, oh, does he have a little Joe Angles to him and whatnot? And what I loved out of Shireman last night when he hit that three in the corner and then he just like blew a kiss to the bench, I was like, oh, this guy's got some fuck you to him. Like that was
Yeah,
pretty
he
great.
does.
Yeah. And then, so the hustle play where he sprinted and knocked the ball out of bounds. Like those are the types of plays that are going to endear you to the Celtics fans. And I think he's able to do the hustle plays, but also showing a little bit more. And he's older than Jordan Walsh. Jordan Walsh is
Yeah.
still a really young guy. So I think the next couple of years, the Celtics are probably going to have to make a decision between those two guys, because Jordan Walsh right now is trending towards the Romeo Langfords of the extreme optimists might say that he has a place on the Celtics, but it's more than likely, I would say, Jordan Walsh doesn't get a second contract or a third contract in the NBA.
Yeah, neither him or Baylor Shireman at this point would I be like, I'm putting all my chips on. I think they're going to make it, but I would bet in the limited sample, which is even less than what I've seen of Jordan Walsh, of Baylor Shireman, on him making an impact in the next season or two in any type of meaningful way right now over Jordan Walsh. I would lean Baylor Shireman over Jordan Walsh.
Yeah.
But that's something to keep out an eye out for. Like we mentioned, these last 19 games, about 15 or 16 of them are going to be opportunities for those guys to get some run, to get a little bit of look. So we'll keep an eye on that. That will be something that we'll track here, as I'm sure the hospital Celtics are going to be a recurring theme here over about the next month and a half or so. Greg, I'm going to take us a little bit away from basketball here for this next part. I know that we've both been watching White Lotus on HBO.
I
Just
have
want to check
not
in.
watched the third episode yet.
Have not watched the third episode. Okay, well, give me your thoughts on just the season so far, and I'll try not to mention anything from episode 3.
I like it, man. I think my favorite part about White Lotus is just the characters that the archetypal characters that they bring in, and they're bringing in the archetypes of like current society, which is really good because I think these type of shows are, 20, 30 years from now, people are going to be able to come back to this show and be like, oh, this is what people were kind of like in the 2020s, right? Like same thing with like Seinfeld and Friends. It's not quite as a realistic portrayal, right, of the time period, but you can at least look at this and say like, oh, there's like the generational gap between fathers and sons, which is season 2. A lot of that was like the 3 generations of the Italian family and whatnot. And I think that's something that Mike White is really interested in exploring, is those generational clashes, which is also timeless, right? But you get to see how those generations are clashing in this time period because there's just so much with technology and whatnot. And that's obviously a theme in this season where they show up at this resort and they're telling them they got to keep their phones away. And the dad's going through all his shit. And he needs his phone out. And the boho daughter's like, oh, dad, like, you got to keep that phone away. What are you doing? And then, the Mike White obviously brings in the classic toxic male every season. Theo James season 2, Schwarzenegger season 3. It's cool seeing like how each season he's kind of tapping into the same types of people, but showing us just a different side of them in a different environment.
Yeah, it's actually really good all 3 seasons. I can't remember the guy's name from the first one, but he's the one that's married to Alexandria Daddario. Yeah, exactly. They're on their honeymoon, right, or whatever. Molly Shannon shows up as his mom. Those 3 guys, and they're so good, right? Those 3 guys are like some of the most interesting TV characters, like literally bottom of the barrel guys that I would never want to hang out with in person, but on TV, they're a blast to spend an hour with, as far as just watching, how ridiculous they are. And yeah, White Lotus
Theo James was at least like, you could see yourself being like sucked into wanting to be his friend. I would never want to be friends with Schwarzenegger or the guy from season 1.
Is that just because Theo James is so good looking?
Probably.
Yeah, like, cause I think he was pretty douchey. I know what you're saying. It feels like back when I used to work in an office, this would have been the guy that I'm like, yeah, all right, I guess I'll go get drinks with this guy. And like, we'd hang out and I'd find like one moment where I'm like, hey, it's not that bad. And then within probably 30 seconds, it would just be like, that's why he's a douchebag. He just would do something immediately that was like, yeah, I don't want to be associated with this guy.
He knows he's really good looking, which is annoying.
Yeah. So I think that's a part of it. But yeah, White Lotus season 3, obviously you haven't got to episode 3 yet. It still is moving a little bit slow. We'll see. But I'm enjoying. I don't mind a slow build as long as there's a payoff. Like, I like when you get in touch with the characters more, and then you care, and then something happens, as opposed to just stuff happening. I'm like, why should I care that person?
Right. Yeah, you need to raise the stakes.
So I enjoy a slow build that gives you some different nuggets along the way. Something I did see, and this doesn't have anything to do with any future episodes that you haven't seen yet, but Greg, or now Gary, has made another appearance in this season.
Yep.
And do you know, maybe you know this because you remembered when we talked about this last week off air. I didn't remember where I knew Leslie Bibb from, and I was just racking my brain. And you were like, "Oh, she's from Talladega Nights, dude." I was like, "Oh, right, totally," but I completely forgot. Do you know where Greg and or Gary? What movie you've seen him in?
No.
Bitch, I can throw this football over them there mountains.
Uncle
Rico.
Uncle Rico.
Dude,
Yeah.
I did not put this together at all. Was on Instagram one day this week, and it was him and Natasha Rothwell, who's the woman that's the masseuse from season 1 that's in this season.
Yeah.
They were doing some promo thing, and they were talking about it, and I was like half paying attention. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, like scroll back down. What was this? I was like, that's Uncle Rico. Had absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
I think Napoleon Dynamite's an overrated movie, but that still blew my mind because Uncle Rico is a legendary character. That is so funny that it literally never once crossed my mind that that's who that was.
Yeah, that's great. And this is kind of like brings me back to the idea that I wanted to do on the pod, and we're not going to flesh out the whole thing, but when Bill Simmons had the producer from White Lotus on, they mentioned how this was a show that Mike White actually conceived of in 2008. Right. And what I love about White Lotus as well. Yeah. Right. And it doesn't get made until the pandemic, which, like, all things had to happen for the show to get made. he does a good job of like bringing back people that you do know, and they like resonate in your brain to something like you knew Leslie Bibb, but you didn't know where she was from. You knew Gary
The
Gregg, but you
dad
didn't know where
from
he was
Harry
from.
Potter and like a few other things or
Right,
whatever.
right. Yeah. Isaacs.
Something
Jason
like that.
Isaacs.
Yeah,
Jason
yeah,
Isaacs.
Jason
I think
Isaacs is his name. Yep.
Yeah. Right. That's Lucius Malfoy. And like when I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, I know that guy, but like, where do I know him from? Walter Goggins. Like everybody knows Walter Goggins. Like all these people that like kind of like I know Walter Goggins from what is he? Is he in Major League? I think he's in Major League. Like that was like the first time I
He's not in Major League.
Are you sure? I think he's an outfielder in Major League. Look it up. Look it up as I'm talking.
Let's look it up real quick. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he's not. Maybe it's Angels in the Outfield. No.
He's in one of those baseball movies, but I'm pretty sure it's Major League. And
Keep talking. I'm looking it up.
in 2008, what I was pitching in
Oh,
Will
shit.
was, am I right?
You are right. Back to the minors. It's one of the later ones. I think this is like the third one.
Okay. Yeah, I knew he was in one of them. But what I was pitching in Will was,
Yeah, you are right. I remember this now. Yep.
Okay. Could we figure out a way to see which actors from like the 90s and 80s would they have considered for roles like this, where they're like Will's like, oh, like Leslie Bibb, like I haven't seen her since Iron Man or since Talladega Nights. Like who would they have brought back in 2008, which would have been really fun. A couple guys I was thinking of, just like all the American Pie guys, like they probably would have taken one of them, maybe the Mighty Ducks kids. They grab one of the Mighty Ducks kids and throw them in there. And you're like, oh, there's Julie the cat. Julie Cat is now, she's like the love interest, right? Like I think that would have been really fun for them. Maybe they grab Stephanie Tanner from Full House, like all these different people that they could have brought into White Lotus back in 2008 that would have like had that same aha moment for you. Would have been really cool.
Yeah, good show, man. I love the idea that they can just keep moving it to different, locations that you just go on vacation for a week.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, this is cool to check out this new area here, especially where we have one of our good friends in Thailand right now. So it's fun for me to think of
coming
like,
back for your wedding in a couple weeks.
Exactly. So we're gonna have to talk to him a little bit about like how the show's depicting Thailand and what his actual experience are like out there. But White Lotus, good show. If you guys aren't watching, recommend checking that out. One of the better shows on television right now. Greg, you got anything else for this week? Passing the rock?
No, man. I actually kind of got to get going because I got guests here. So I think this is a good place.
All good. I think we've done what we need to do on this episode. Celtics, Lakers, Saturday night. That's going to be fun. Greg and I will have a podcast up, not right after the game, but Sunday we'll definitely have something up for you guys following that, and then setting up the matchup with the Thunder during the week, which will probably go live after that game on a Wednesday night. But as always, appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Make sure you guys are following us across all social media at Green NV Pod, Celtics Noise at gmail.com. Hit us up. You guys have questions, we'll try to have some answers. You guys want to get on the show, you guys want to have suggestions of somebody that should come on the show, send it to CelticsNoise at gmail.com. Greg, enjoy your weekend. Everybody listening, enjoy your weekend, and we will catch you guys on Sunday. Peace.